Hello. This is a bit of an extreme close-up of me, but it's okay. I'm starting another challenge video. Maybe you can tell what my challenge is going to be. Yes, you are correct. I am going to be reading the Infernal Devices trilogy and then starting on the Last Hours series by Cassandra Clare with Chain of Gold. So I have read the Mortal Instruments series, books 1 to 6, before. I read them quite a long time ago now, probably about 10 years ago, so I can't remember the intricacies of the plot, but I can remember the overall storyline, and I have seen some of the adaptations and things since then. But I've never read anything else within the Shadowhunter world, and I'm particularly drawn to the Infernal Devices series because it is set in Edwardian London, I believe. I think I used to think that it was in Victorian London, but actually according to the synopsis for Chain of Gold, it's actually Edwardian London. So I just found that setting somewhat enticing, and so I want to read the series and take you along with me. Of course, I'm going to be starting with Clockwork Angel, moving through Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess, and then finally Chain of Gold. So as I mentioned, I haven't read these before, so I don't know a whole lot about what these are about. But this is going to be a spoiler-filled reading challenge video for both the Infernal Devices trilogy and Chain of Gold, so if you don't want to be spoiled for any of those books, then I'm probably going to have to send you away at this point and come back one day when you've maybe read the series. But if you've already read it or you're not bothered about spoilers, then stay tuned, because I have a feeling this is going to be a bit of an interesting journey. Okay, so I've moved you away a little bit so things aren't so up close and personal, and I'm going to read the synopsis from the back of Clockwork Angel, which is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. So I guess TID actually is during Victorian England, and it's just Chain of Gold that is in Edwardian England. So I was right in the first place and should not have doubted myself purely on the basis of the Chain of Gold synopsis. Anyway, I do have audiobooks for all of these books through Scribed, which is great because I've been really enjoying reading and listening to books recently, so I'm really glad that I'm going to be able to do that with this series as well. I'm really looking forward to reading an urban fantasy series that is set in London, which is the city that I live in, and there's a map in the beginning of the first book. I presume it's in all of the books, and it highlights various places, but I recognise the map and I recognise a lot of those landmarks, so I think it's just going to be really fun to read this book and be able to recognise a lot of the places and know that I've been to a lot of those places as well. So I am going to start with this one this evening. It's currently Friday the 24th of April at approximately 5:10, so I am going to start this evening. I of course won't finish this today, but hopefully I will finish it tomorrow, which is of course Saturday. But before I do that, I need to choose some bookmarks for reading this series, and I was trying to think of ways to make this reading challenge a little bit different and a little bit more interesting, and my sister suggested that I use tarot cards as bookmarks, which I do anyway, but she suggested that I film that process because this is mild spoilers for the Mortal Instruments. If you've not read that, then turn away, although to be honest, if you are still here, then chances are you already know. But tarot cards are where Clary found the Mortal Cup in the Mortal Instruments series. So I have my replica Mortal Cup here that I recently got in my Chain of Gold box from Fairy Loot. I did actually email them about the damage that happened to my Mortal Cup, and they are very kindly sending me another one, so that's really, really lovely. But for now, I have my Mortal Cup. I'm going to do a tarot card reading. I'm not spiritual or anything like that, so it's not a proper tarot card reading. I use it more for meditation and setting intention and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw 3 cards to act as my bookmarks for each of the 3 books in the Infernal Devices series. I will then use all 3 cards in Chain of Gold when I read that one. But I thought it would be fun to film that process, and you can potentially pick a card that calls to you to help you set your intention for the day or the week or the month or whatever you want to do. So let's do that now. Okay, so this is supposed to be a quite peaceful section of this video for you, so take a minute to take a few deep breaths, maybe get yourself a nice drink, a cup of tea or coffee, and try to just relax. I have the books set up here on the lovely fairy loot tapestry, and I'm just going to shuffle my tarot deck. In case you're wondering, this is the Shadowscapes tarot deck, which I got off of Wordery, so I will link it down below for you. I'm just going to choose the first 3 cards at the top of the deck and see if one of these cards calls to you at all. And if it does, that can be your card for the week, or for the month, or just for the day. Or you can decide to pick all 3 if you prefer. And just remember, I'm not a professional tarot reader, and I don't do this for any spiritual reason. I just use it as a form of meditation. So, the first card, and I will show you these close up later because they really are quite beautiful with the artwork. The first card that comes up is Major Arcana card, the Devil. This is the card I will use as my bookmark for the Clockwork Angel. So the Devil card is for losing independence, addiction and enslavement, caught up in the material realm, overindulgence, choosing to stay in the dark, pleasures, lust and desire, feeling hopelessness close in and limit the options. Which sounds a little bit negative, but I'm going to take that to mean that the first book in the Infernal Devices series is going to capture my attention and encapsulate me in the world so that I won't want to do anything else other than read the series, which is good news. The second card, another Major Arcana card, is the Wheel of Fortune. The wheel signifies destiny, the weaving of life's threads coming together, fate, turning points, movement and change, patterns and cycles, an interconnected world. The knotwork in the stained glass window is a single golden thread without start or finish. For the final card, we have 4 of Swords. 4 of Swords says, take a moment of respite. Close your eyes and find that still, silent place at your core where inner strength resides. Draw from that reserve in times to come. This might be because this is the final book in this series, and I might need to take a moment to just absorb everything that's happened in the first 2 books. So now I'm going to show you some close-ups of the artwork on these cards because, like I said, they really are beautiful. Okay, so these are going to be my bookmarks for the Infernal Devices series. I'm of course going to start with book 1, so the bookmarks for book 2 and 3 can sit in my mortal cup and wait for me. Let's get into it. Okay, so that was something a little different for my channel. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you didn't want to watch it, hopefully you just skipped over it. But I'm now going to get into, well, I'm probably going to have dinner first actually, and then I'm going to get into Clockwork Angel, and I will update you once I have made some progress, I suppose. It is later now, it's 10 PM in fact, and I have quickly read 106 pages of Clockwork Angel. I actually didn't start reading until about 8, and not solidly since then either, because, and this is going to be a very short rant, but Scribed tells you that membership gives you unlimited reading, listening, whatever. And that's true, but at a certain point they might start to limit the library that you have access to. And I have had these books in my saved folder for weeks and weeks and weeks now, because I knew that I was planning on doing this reading challenge. And I checked yesterday and they were still there. And today, when I went to start this book, it was no longer there. It was saying available soon, as in the end of the month. And I could have waited and put off this reading challenge for a week or so until they become available again. But I have plans for my reading in May that don't fit with that. And then, just out of curiosity, I decided if I go on the... Hey! Sorry, I just had to stop Haruki playing with something he shouldn't have. If I go onto the Scribed website in private browsing, is the series available? Yes. Yes, it is. So it's only me that it's not available for, presumably because I've listened to a number of other audiobooks on Scribed this month, popular ones, and they don't want me to listen to any more this month. They want me to continue my subscription into next month and listen to them then, which I will continue my subscription, but I do find it very irritating that they stop you from reading what you want to read for some arbitrary reasons. So I thought, you know what, screw you, frankly, and I have another email address that I use for professional purposes, so I just signed up for a new account, for a new free 30-day trial, and I have access to the books now on my new free account. So I'm going to listen to the audiobooks for this trilogy, and then I'm just going to unsubscribe on that second account, and I don't feel bad about it because I just don't like being manipulated. If I was told you can listen to 3-4 books a month and then that's it, that would be fine. I'd be okay with that. But don't tell me it's unlimited and then say it's unlimited but out of the stuff that we want you to be able to listen to. Like, that's not cool. So anyway, that's my little rant over with. So I am now listening and following along. So like I said, I'm on page 107, which is the beginning of chapter 5 here. My observations so far are that it reminds me a lot of City of Bones, which is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. It reminds me a lot of the opening to that, and Tessa does remind me a little bit of Clary, but Will really reminds me of Jace, like a lot. And I'm hoping that this is not going to end up being a virtual carbon copy of that trilogy, because I didn't love that trilogy enough to want a complete rehash of it. I'm hoping that this intro stuff where we're learning about what the shadowhunters are and what the Institute is and what downworlders are and all that kind of stuff, I'm hoping that that's just, you know, the opening in case people are coming new to the Shadowhunter world and need all of that information up front as Tessa is learning it. And I'm hoping that after all of that has happened, it's going to get a little bit more individual, because a lot of it is very, very similar, at least to what I remember of reading City of Bones, albeit I did read that book about 10 years ago, but I read that book 10 years ago and this is reminding me of it, so it must be fairly similar for that to be happening. Which is why I am hoping that it's going to diverge a little bit soon. Like I said, this is going to be spoiler filled, so far really that's all that's happened. We've been introduced to Will and Tessa and Jem a little bit, and we've learned that, well, the suggestion is that Tessa is a downworlder. I'm not sure if I believe that at this stage. She is a shapeshifter of some kind, but Brother Enoch has said that she's a shapeshifter, but she doesn't have a demon mark, so they don't know what kind of downworlder she is, and I just don't think she's a downworlder. I don't know why. I just feel like there's something more going on, so I guess we'll find out if I am right. But that's really all that's happened so far. Hi, so it's now 20 to 4 on Sunday, and I haven't done as much reading this weekend as I wanted to, because Lee and I have had this project that we wanted to do for ages, and this has been the first weekend where we've both been free and able to do it. So we have cat-proofed our balcony. We have created a catio this weekend, and it took quite a lot of time because it was, before that we never used the balcony, and so it needed a lot of tidying and cleaning before we could actually start putting up the netting. So we did the cleaning and stuff yesterday, tried putting up the netting yesterday, it didn't go particularly well, so we let that go for yesterday, and then we've just done the netting today and given the boys an opportunity to go outside. Haruki, predictably, was very curious and had a little bit of exploring. Shinji was absolutely terrified and was hiding. So we've closed back up again now because we don't want to stress out Shinji too much. But anyway, I did finish Clockwork Angel yesterday, and here's the thing, it is very, very similar to the Mortal Instruments series. So our antagonist is the Magister rather than Valentine, and he wants Tessa rather than the Mortal Cup. But I suppose in the first book, Valentine is really trying to get to Clary as well, so that's very similar. Will still reminds me a lot of Jace, which I suppose to some extent does make sense because they are related. Jace is a Herondale, I believe, and it's Will Herondale, so I mean, some similarities potentially are reasonable, but they are very, very similar. In this book, the love interest was very much between Tessa and Will. I understand that Clockwork Prince, which I have started, is going to be a bit more Tessa and Jem focused. But I do have some issues with that because Tessa knows that Sophie likes Jem, although Sophie could never be with Jem because Sophie is from a different class, I suppose, if you want to call it that. Well, it was a class-based system in Victorian England. But yeah, so this one was fine. I liked it fine, nothing incredible, but I have heard that this is the weakest book in the series, so maybe I'll like the others better. I have started Clockwork Prince this morning. I haven't made loads of progress. I'm only on page 68. This audiobook is being narrated by Ed Westwick in part, which I'm trash for Chuck Bass, so that's fine with me. I really like Ed Westwick as an actor as well. I think he's really great, and it helps that he's British. So this one was narrated by an American narrator. I can't remember her name now. Let me check. Jennifer Ely. And that's fine because the majority of this is in Tessa's perspective, but Americans doing British accents can be very touch and go, and it was okay, but still a little bit cringe, whereas Ed Westwick is British, so I like that because there's not as many famous British actors as there are American actors, so I like that, and also it just makes more sense for Will's perspective to be told in an authentic British accent, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm on page 68 of this one, so we really haven't done very much yet. The Lightwoods are irritating, aren't they? Benedict Lightwood is a bit of an ass. I think, you know, that's the kind of the point, but still, he's all, oh well, a woman shouldn't be in charge of the institute, so whatever. We don't like him. We're not meant to. So I'm going to carry on with this one. I might be able to finish it today. Probably not. So I have finished Clockwork Prince, and this one was definitely better. I can see why people say that Clockwork Angel is a little bit slow compared to the next two books in the series. This one's definitely better, but what I'm realising is that all the shadowhuntery stuff, everything that's going on with Mortmain and the automatons and all that kind of political intrigue that's going on alongside that with Benedict, I was about to say Cumberbatch, Benedict Lightwood, is all sort of not really the main point of this series, actually, or at least not in my reading. The main focus of the story seems to be this love triangle between Tessa, Jem and Will, which I don't think I realised how important that triangle would be in this story. I always thought that that was like the secondary plot and the shadow hunting stuff was the primary plot, but it's actually the other way round, or at least that's what it seems to be to me, because we seem to spend a lot more time in particularly Tessa's head tossing up between Will or Jem, Will or Jem, Will or Jem. So that's interesting. I don't mind that necessarily, because I quite like paranormal romance anyway, so that doesn't bother me per se. But it is interesting because in first book, in Clockwork Angel, I didn't really see Jem as a prospect at all. He's just this really kind, lovely man who Tessa has a sort of friendly connection with, but really the focus is on will get his shit together enough to want to be with Tessa, or will he just continue pushing her away? And then in this book we finally understand why Will is pushing Tessa away. He believes he's got this curse that means that anybody who loves him will die, which is clearly crap. That's clearly just not the case at all, because Jem clearly loves him, albeit Jem is dying anyway, and Charlotte clearly loves him. His family, who he abandoned essentially, clearly love him. So I feel like the resolution to that plot, that there never was a curse, was pretty predictable, but I feel like it was meant to be predictable because he was clearly being stupid. But then in this one, Jem becomes more of a possibility, but it's almost, I feel really bad for Jem because it's almost like he's just, you know, well, Will's being mean to me and doesn't want me, so I guess I'll be with Jem. And then he proposes, and then Will comes to his senses, and there's that whole bit at the end, and it's really sad, and I really feel for Jem. And I know, because of spoilers, that she somehow ends up, well, because I know that Chain of Gold follows the children of Will and Tessa, so I know somehow Will and Tessa end up together, but that just makes me feel really bad for Jem, and then I'm like, I really hope that it's not going to be that Jem dies and that's how her and Will end up together, because that's awful. I really hope that we end up in some sort of polyamorous situation. That would be amazing, but I don't think so, because I've heard so many people talk about how much Clockwork Princess made them cry at the end, so I just have this horrible feeling that Jem is going to die and that's how Will and Tessa will end up together. And that's just horrible. That's horrible. I don't want that to happen. It's probably what is going to happen, but I'm not cool with that. I think it's just so sad because Jem is so lovely. And she's almost with Jem out of obligation now because, well, she said yes because she was like, well, I do like Jem and Will doesn't like me, so I might as well have a husband, and Jem's as good as anyone else. And he's here, you know, but he's just such a nice man. And now she's all conflicted because Will's like, well, I do love you and I only pushed you away because of this curse that was clearly bullshit the whole time. And now she's staying with Jem out of obligation so that she doesn't hurt him, and Will is doing the same, and Jem deserves better, so maybe that makes me Team Jem. But I'm not Team Tessa and Jem, I'm just Team Jem. Does that make sense? I don't know. Aside from all that, that makes me sound like I'm really, really invested, and I'm not really. Well, I am, but I'm not. It's a good series so far. It's fine, but it's nothing amazing, it's nothing incredible, it's not like the best thing I've ever read. It's definitely not the best paranormal romance I've ever read, definitely not the best fantasy I've ever read. I'm liking it fine, but it's fine. It's okay, it's good, but, you know, not incredible. So I'm hoping that Clockwork Princess is going to turn it around. That's what I've heard. I've heard that Clockwork Princess is the one that really brings it home. And these are enjoyable anyway. It's not like I'm forcing myself to read these to read Clockwork Princess and Chain of Gold. I am enjoying them. If I wanted to DNF them, I would, and I'm enjoying them fine. There wasn't enough. This is completely a side issue, but there was parts of this this audiobook were narrated by Ed Westwick, which I think I mentioned before, and I liked those bits, but I feel like they possibly just couldn't afford for him to read that much of it, because he didn't narrate most of it. The rest of it was narrated by Heather Lind. So the majority of it was read by Heather Lind, and then there were very few parts of this book that were told from the perspective of either Will or Magnus Bane, who, by the way, I love. Magnus Bane is like my favourite Shadowhunter character ever, whether it be in the Mortal Instruments or in this series. I love Magnus Bane, best character ever. In this series anyway. And Ed Westwick narrated those parts, which made sense, but then he randomly narrated some of Tessa's parts as well, and he randomly narrated some of the chapter openings, because all of the chapters open with an extract from a poem. So that was weird. I just thought I'd mention that. Not that I disliked it, but it just was weird. So anyway, I finished books 1 and 2, so I'm on to book 3, Clockwork Princess, which is the longest in the series. I think the audiobook is about 16 hours, and I definitely won't finish that today, of course, because it's too late in the day. I don't have time to read the whole thing today, much as I might like to. So I hopefully will finish this either tomorrow or Wednesday, and then I can move on to Chain of Gold. I hope that I'll be able to finish the series within April. It's currently the 27th of April, so I only have today and then 3 more days in April, and ideally I would like to finish this series plus Chain of Gold in April because I have separate reading plans for May, which you will have already heard about in my May TBR video, which I will link up here, somewhere. And this one is 569 pages, I've just seen. So I am going to start this one today. I love the cover picture on this one, by the way. I think it is illustrated, isn't it? I don't think it's a photo. Either way, really, really pretty. Really like that. I'm very interested still to see what Tessa is and what the clockwork angel that she wears is. I'm less bothered about the whole Mortmain automatons thing. I'm sure that will get resolved somehow. Not that invested in that part of the story, but I am very intrigued to find out what Tessa is. I still think that she's half shadowhunter, half demon, but it was discussed in this book how that's not possible because the children of shadowhunters and demons are stillborn. But I think that that's wrong. I think that that's what Tessa is. So, well, that will have to be answered in this next book. So I'm interested to see what the resolution to that is, and I'm apprehensive to see what the resolution of the love triangle is. My ideal would be polyamorous relationship. Given that this is Victorian era England, I don't think that's going to happen, sadly. I would love it if it did. I don't think it will. I think Gem's going to die. And then Will and Tessa are going to end up together. But I really hope not. I really hope that what happens is they find a cure for Gem and they end up in a polyamorous relationship. Or two, that Gem breaks up with her. Not because he wants her to be with Will and wants Will to be with her. Now, basically, I want Gem to be fine and them to be in a polyamorous relationship with the three of them, which is not going to happen, but that's what I want to happen. So, that's my little ramble for now, and I guess we'll see each other again once I have read Clockwork Princess, although I envisage I'll be checking in a bit more regularly, because I have a feeling that there are going to be some bombs dropped in this I'm going to be like needing to talk to someone about, which will be you. So, see you then. Right, I've just done a bit of bulk filming. It's now Tuesday, but I have made quite a lot of progress with Clockwork Princess since I last updated you. So I'm actually on page 361 now of 580-ish, so well past halfway. So far, apparently Gem is dead. I don't buy it. It wasn't dealt with in enough detail, so I just don't believe that it's actually happened. I don't think that he's actually dead. I think that maybe he's broken his parapetite bond. I don't know why he would do that, but I don't know. We didn't get to see it happen. We didn't get to see anybody properly say goodbye. It's just been kind of hinted at. Well, slightly more than hinted at, but not specifically confirmed that he is dead. So, I don't think he is. Or if he is, it's not permanent. I don't know. I feel like there's been so much build-up to Gem dying, and then it just happens. It's off page, and we don't see anything to do with it. So, I don't believe it's happened. I don't. We've also, by this point, had it confirmed that Tessa is indeed half Shadowhunter, half demon, which, yes, I was right. And because I was right, it doesn't surprise me. It completely makes sense. I am interested to see what that means in terms of what else she's actually capable of in light of that. But, like I said, I've only got sort of 200-ish pages left. I think that equates to about 3 hours of listening at my speed to the audiobook, and it's currently 10 to 6. Now I do need to do some editing tonight and get a video up, but my priority is going to be reading this book and finishing it, because I am very interested to see what the ending is going to be, and if like many people, it is going to make me cry, because I don't cry easily at books, and I thought that the bit that everybody was crying over was Jem's death. But now I just don't think he's going to die. I mean, I didn't think he was going to die. But then I thought, well, if everybody cries at the end of Clockwork Princess, then maybe that's because Jem dies. But now Jem has supposedly died, like, halfway through the book, and I don't buy it. So I feel like it's going to be something else. I still don't think I'm going to get my dream poly relationship out of the three of them, but something is coming, and I'm really, really pleased that I don't know what it is, because it really annoys me when I guess the endings of things. So let's see. I will hopefully update you soon. I finished Clockwork Princess about an hour ago, and I'm going to have to give you my composed thoughts about this book and this series tomorrow, because I don't really know how I feel. But there are some things that we need to discuss. Okay, so as I knew, because I was spoiled for it, Tessa ends up with Will, and Jem is a silent brother, which was an interesting twist. Not what I was expecting, but does kind of fit with the story. I should have seen that coming. I didn't. I'm not loving this lighting. That's a bit better. The way Tessa defeated Mortmain, I really liked. Turning into the angel and burning him, I liked that. I never really saw that as the main plot of the story, so I didn't really mind that it was over quickly. But so here's the thing, right? Tessa liked Will from the start because she found him attractive. He's very, very handsome, that is made clear. That's fine. And she has the literary connection with him, and they sort of understand each other on that level. And she's a very forgiving person, so she forgives him for all the awful, awful things that he said to her in the first book. But I always felt that her connection with Will was much more materialistic and surface level than her connection with Jem. But then, having said that, I also always felt a little bit like she was with Jem because she didn't think she could be with Will, and then she stayed with Jem out of duty, and I always felt really sad about that, because Jem is just that. He's such a gem. He is such an amazing, amazing man. And even when Will told him, you know, by the way, I'm in love with your fiancé, and I told her, and Jem is just angry that Will didn't give him the opportunity to step aside. That's so Jem. And so Tessa ends up with Will, which I knew was coming because I'd been spoiled. And then Tessa's immortal, so she spends her life with Will and then he dies, and that was very emotional. And the scenes where they were saying goodbye to Jem because he was a silent brother and he couldn't be in their lives the way that they would want him to be, those were really emotional. And then Tessa and Jem meet on Blackfriars Bridge in 2008, and he's human again. He's not a silent brother anymore, and they can finally be together. And that was really great, and I really loved that for Jem. But the thing is I do have some issues with it, because she ended up getting both. And not that I didn't want her to get both. It just, I don't know, it wasn't satisfying. I think what it was is I wanted my poly relationship, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. But I feel like that would have been a better ending to this story if they had found a way for Tessa to not be immortal and to give up her demon half, and they found a way to save Jem without them having to wait like 150 years for that to happen, and they all just grow old together. That's beautiful. It's almost cheapened it a little bit, that, you know, she had her life with Will and Jem was not really miserable because he's a silent brother and he couldn't really experience misery in that way, but Tessa had her life with Will and Will got to be happy but also sad because Jem wasn't there, and then Will dies and Tessa is sad for like 70 years, something like that. My maths isn't great, it's 11 p.m. She's sad because her husband, who she loves, has died and she runs away because she doesn't want to have to watch her children die too. And then Jem comes back and then she gets to have her life with Jem and it's all going to go round again. She's going to lose him too because he's mortal again and she's immortal. And there was the whole scene where Tessa had just found out that Jem was dead and Will was only really starting to deal with the fact that Jem was dead, and then they just decide to bang. And I mean, they were comforting each other and they'd always had feelings for each other, but that felt a little bit wrong, and especially because she'd never been with Jem, which fit the time period. The whole premarital sex thing is a problem in the 1800s, fine, whatever. Hence why a polyamorous relationship would not have happened. But if we were going for historically accurate, then she probably wouldn't have had sex with Will anyway, and if she was willing to have sex with Will, then she would have had sex with Jem, surely. Although Jem probably wouldn't have had sex with her because he's such a great man. And Will is fine too. Not disparaging Will. He's done a lot of shit. But, great guy as well. But, I don't know, I don't know how I feel. That's just sort of word vomit. I'm going to have to ruminate on this trilogy for a bit. But I do need to jump into Chain of Gold pretty much straight away because I do want to have finished that book by the end of the month. And that book, the audiobook, is 21 hours long and I only have 2 days left in April to read it, so it's already going to be a bit of a push, I think, to finish it by Thursday, which means I do need to crack straight on with it tomorrow. And I also don't know how I feel about that because it follows Will and Tessa's children, and I don't know how I feel about Will and Tessa together, and I know that Tessa's going to abandon them. But one of them is called James, named after Jem. So, and I'm not even like, this book was good, I enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing, it wasn't incredible, it didn't get 5 stars from me. It's not that level of favourite ever, but I do still have a lot of feelings and thoughts about it. So, don't know, but I am going to have to start Chain of Gold, and I can now properly read what Chain of Gold is about. So, welcome to Edwardian London, so Queen Victoria has died. A time of electric lights and long shadows, the celebration of artistic beauty and the wild pursuit of pleasure, with demons waiting in the dark. For years there has been peace in the Shadowhunter world. James and Lucy Herondale, children of the famous Will and Tessa, have grown up in an idyll with their loving friends and family, listening to stories of good defeating evil and love conquering all. But everything changes when the Blackthorn and Carstairs families come to London, and so does a remorseless and inescapable plague. James Herondale longs for a great love, and he thinks he has found it in beautiful, mysterious Grace Blackthorn. Cordelia Carstairs is desperate to become a hero, save her family from ruin, and keep her secret love for James hidden. So we've got another triangle. When disaster strikes, the Shadowhunters, James, Cordelia and their friends, are plunged into a wild adventure which will reveal dark and incredible powers and the true cruel price of being a hero and falling in love. Another love triangle. Seriously, is that all that Cassandra Clare's writes? I'm not trying to be mean, but there's a love triangle in the Mortal Instruments between Clary, Jace and Simon. There's a love triangle in the Infernal Devices between Tessa, Jem and Will. And now we have James, another Jem, oh my gosh, James, what's her name? Grace and Cordelia. I'm not okay with this. Why? Why you gotta do this to me, Cassie? Why? So, another love triangle it is then. Okay, well, That's fine. That's fine. That reminds me though, why did everybody have to end up coupled up at the end of this? It was not necessary. Like Cecily and Gabriel? What? Why? That was just, I mean, it was building for the whole book, but it was very throwaway. And I mean, Sophie and Gideon I kind of liked, and I love that Sophie ascended, but it just felt a little bit unnecessary. And even Jessamine is back at the end. I mean, albeit she's a ghost, but still, there are like no consequences. You know what should have happened? Will and Jem should have been fine and Tessa should have died. You know, that would have made me cry. That would have made me cry, but they both enjoyed it and I'm frustrated. So, let me know what you think, okay? Now I'm going to bed. It is now actually Thursday, the 30th of April, so hopefully my last day of this particular reading challenge, and I have started Chain of Gold. I'm only 241 pages into it and it's nearly 600 pages. I didn't make a huge amount of progress on it yesterday because my Crohn's disease was giving me a little bit of difficulty, so it was a little bit challenging to concentrate on reading yesterday, but I did still read a decent chunk and I'm enjoying it so far. I like the writing style better. You can definitely tell that Cassandra Clare has developed as an author since she published Clockwork Angel, which I think came out in 2010. It's been 10 years since then and she's written a lot of books since then, so you can definitely tell, and I do think that she has improved. My hair is a disaster, sorry, it's still drying. Ooh. Anyway, so the writing style is just more straightforward. I still think, and this was the case a little bit with the Infernal Devices, that the dialogue is a little bit formal. Maybe not so much with the Infernal Devices, but things are still a little bit formal in this one, and we're set in 1903 now, so it's not really early Victorian era anymore, but it still feels a little bit like that, and I don't know whether that is just because that's the style she wrote the Infernal Devices in and so she's just continuing it, or whether Cassie Clare thinks that that's how English people still talk. I don't know. There is a misconception that people in England are all extremely proper all the time, and I know I'm one to talk because I do have a very posh English accent, but most people don't speak like me. I'm quite unusual, even in the UK, so there's that. But anyway, I am enjoying it. I had to write myself a little cheat sheet post-it note to put in the front to keep track of all the characters and how they're all related to each other, because everybody's bloody related to everybody in this and I just could not keep it straight in my head. So I've put that in the front cover so that when I'm trying to keep track of things as I'm going through the story, I can just flip to that and double check whose sibling is that, whose son is that, whose daughter is that, whose whatever is that, you know. So I'm starting to get my head around things. It is a little bit involved. I don't know that I would have wanted to read this without having read the Infernal Devices first, so there's that. I am hoping to finish this today and I will let you have more thoughts later on. Okay, so it's now Friday the 1st of May, but I did finish Chain of Gold yesterday quite late at night, which is why I'm updating you now, and on the whole I liked it. I enjoyed myself. Like I said before, I found the writing style of this one a little bit easier and more enjoyable, although I think that the English was still a little bit more formal in terms of the dialogue than it really needed to be, but I did enjoy it. There were a lot of elements of the plot though that frustrated me in some ways, not in a negative way, but in a I'm really annoyed that this happened and I kind of got used to binging TID, so now I have to wait until next year for the sequel to this, and there's just stuff that happens that, so Grace is clearly very manipulative. She's put this bracelet on James that clearly makes him think that he's in love with her when really he's not, and I think he actually might be in love with Cordelia. She's clearly in love with him, and now they're engaged because she saved him from having to go to the Silent City because of burning down the Blackstone's house, which was totally warranted. Tatiana is completely insane. Belial is obviously a complete issue, and as with the Infernal Devices, I feel like all of that other sort of demon slaying plot is tangential to all of the romantic and angsty relationships that are going on, because Cordelia is in love with James, and so she's both happy that she's marrying him and sad because it's not really real, and James thinks he's in love with Grace, but actually he's in love with Cordelia. Matthew is in love with Cordelia as well. So there's another triangle going there. So is it now a square? What is happening? Alistair is probably going to end up with Thomas, I would guess. And I think my favourite character though, and certainly the favourite character to read the perspective of, is Anna. I find her a really, really interesting character. I think we only got one little section at the end of the book that was told from Anna's perspective, but I really, really enjoyed that, and I really settled into the narrative for that section. I found that section of narrative the most enjoyable to read, so I hope that we get more from Anna and Anna's perspective as the series goes on. I do think it's hilarious though that Cordelia lies and says that her and James spent the night together to protect him from suspicion or from being found out for having burnt down the house. And then Will gets really, really angry with James and is like, I thought we taught you better than to treat women this way. And I'm like, hello? You and Tessa banged like before you were married, and literally just as she found out that Jem was dead. So, hypocrisy much? Anyway, that's a minor point, but I did really enjoy the first book in the Last Hours series, Chain of Gold. I will definitely be continuing on with the series, so I think we can call this challenge a success. And because I didn't properly wrap up my feelings about the Infernal Devices, because at the time I didn't know what my feelings were, I just want to clarify that I am Team Jem. But my problem actually is that Tessa doesn't seem to love either Will or Jem, not in the Infernal Devices anyway, as much as either of them love her. But I am Team Jem. So that's my concluding remark, I suppose, on the Infernal Devices. But I really enjoyed this reading challenge, and I hope that you enjoyed watching me read these books. I'm glad that I did decide to pick up these two series, I suppose. And let me know if you've read any of these books. If you have, please comment down below, because I need to talk to people and have replies about these particular books. But that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks. Bye.